Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is not Ian. I almost said Ian, but is Evgeni.
No, that's fine, because I will just wait for you to announce Ian, because that's the person who comes before me.
Yeah, generally.
I'm Argent. And I have a...
Yeah?
No, never mind. I will forgo the show and tell.
Yes, and Argent has people outside mowing the lawn, so yeah, so you might hear that a little bit.
They're actually replacing my lawn.
Oh.
With what?
Better lawn, I guess.
Ooh.
I mean, better lawn. Lawn 2.0.
Greener. The grass is greener on the new lawn.
I mean, that's not very challenging, because the old lawn was like orange.
Yep. Also joining us is Grace.
I am Gator Girl the Graceful, returning to Shardcast because I had a vision of a podcast.
That's true. You did have a vision of a podcast, because this podcast would not be happening if you didn't suggest it.
That's true.
Welcome back. We've missed you. It's been like a billion years, but that's because 2020's been a billion years. It's like, hey, remember back when like May? Oh yeah. That was a long time ago.
When the concept of time existed.
Yeah, back then. And lastly, we got Ben.
Hello, I am Jebus the Overlording, because I couldn't come up with anything better.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it sucks.
Yep.
But I brought show and tell,
Oh,
because, and by bringing show and tell, what I do is I just grab something that's on the desk, and
Really?
it's this little Celebi in a Pokeball.
Okay.
We've got. And it's sitting on a little house.
I like how I was like so upset. I was like, "Oh no, that's really cute. It's really cute."
Yes,
this is the way of show and tell. You just go.
Like, what's in arm's reach? I've got some legal
like,
documents as well, but I'm not going to show. Because
yeah, you really should not do that. It's like
That's always the conundrum, right? Because you can't show legal documents, but you also can't show illegal documents.
And I'm Chaos, and we're going to be talking this week about The Returned, and this is one of our last podcasts before Rhythm of War, because with our biweekly schedule, like after this, I mean, hopefully Dawnshard will be out by then. We can talk about that, and then 2 weeks later, it's Rhythm of War time. So we don't have many things left to do. So firstly, no Rhythm of War or Dawnshard spoilers in this, because Grace hasn't read the sample chapters, so yeah. So nothing about that. And I imagine at least Warbreaker spoilers, probably full Cosmere spoilers too. I don't know, probably.
I think we're gonna touch on both Stormlight and Mistborn.
Yeah, probably.
There's going to be some cognitive shadow stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Some cog shatting.
No.
Yep.
No. All right. So, what are the Returned? In case people forgot, what are the Returned?
I can feel that real quick, and by real quick, I mean not real quick at all.
Oh, great.
So on the world of Nalthis, where Warbreaker takes place, some time ago, do we know how long ago this thing happened? Like centuries, definitely, but I don't think thousands
but not
of years.
Millennia. Yeah, I don't think millennia. It's not quite clear when the first return happened, but it was many wars like 300 years ago. Like I think like maybe like 100 or 200-ish years before that, but like that's super hazy. We don't really know.
So some like let's say several centuries ago, the Shard of Endowment, who now resides on that planet, decided that she was going to start bringing people back to life, essentially. For various reasons and various purposes, some of which are her own, some of which might be just pure whimsy. And the way she did that was by finding a potential target recipient, and when they died, she grabbed their cognitive shadow and stapled it back to their body with a chunk of investiture known as Divine Breath. And that person came back to life. They couldn't remember who they were anymore.
Yeah, they didn't have memories.
I think sometimes or always they remember a vision of why they were brought back, but it's not always clear, right? Like Lightsong, for example, saw
Yeah.
vision of Halandren burning. And so, well, like, is my purpose to burn Halandren or to prevent the war that's coming there?
And he eventually remembers like more. He like remembers how he returned and stuff. At the very end.
It's pretty common for returned to like right before they give up their breath to remember their entire life story.
Right. Which brings us back to, well, the returned need breath, which is a chunk of extra innate investiture that Nalthians have. They need investiture, really, to sustain them, because if they don't receive additional investiture after a week, their body just consumes that divine breath that is stapling their soul to their body. And without that divine breath, then they just die. And as an extension of that, at any point in their life, they can choose to give up their divine breath with this magnificent expression of power, which oftentimes manifests as healing energy, essentially. But I don't think it has to be healing. Like, I think they can just essentially use the power of creation to do things. Although maybe that's something we can speculate on later on.
I think it has to be healing. I remember seeing WOBs where Brandon said it is always healing.
Oh, interesting. But yeah, that's mostly their... Oh, and the divine breath they have, even though it's a single breath, it essentially turns them into, or gives them the benefits of the fifth heightening of awakening. Except they can't use it to awaken. Or if they can, they no longer have the breath and then they die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little different than like shades and like other cognitive shadows, because this, like, it's being stapled back to a regular body, and that body requires fuel in the form of investiture. And so, and like, I think Lightsong gets like pretty fatigued before he like feeds on a new breath, things like that.
Just tired, weary. His biochromatic aura actually dims a little bit,
right,
on the final day. And then once he feeds, then he's back fine. Oh, and so there's a cultural thing established. So people on Naltis treat the returned differently based on where they are. In the kingdom of Halandren, specifically in the city of Taitalir, they have established a court of gods there. And whenever somebody returns, they treat them as a god. They're essentially imprisoned in the court. That's the only place they live. But they have every one of their needs kind of taken care of, and they're worshipped, and they're fed, and they're pampered, and all that.
There's a few things in your explanation that maybe we don't want to talk about it right now, but one thing that occurred to me about healing, this was actually discussed in Discord recently, with the healing with the divine breath, that Cosmere healing doesn't seem to care about how a person perceives themselves, right? Because usually Cosmere healing, like old wounds and stuff, you know, if you don't see yourself, if you see yourself with this wound, then like regrowth will not heal you, right?
Yes.
Like your perception really affects, like how you think about that really affects it. So like Susabran, I would say, you know, thinks of himself as his tongue was cut out. Like his tongue has always been cut out. But Lightsong healing Susabran, that totally fixed that. Which is, that's just kind of an interesting difference between Cosmere healing. Like, it's a very powerful Cosmere healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a thought, just as you were talking, that... Actually, no, sorry. I had this thought whilst reading this conversation on Discord earlier this week. And it was, during the events of the book, Susabran and his relationship with Ciri kind of developed to this point where I think at that point, Susabran might have wished that he had his tongue back. And if those events hadn't happened, potentially maybe the tongue wouldn't have been healed, because he would have been comfortable and seen himself. And so there's kind of a bit of, like, he saw himself living with Ciri and like as a future with Ciri, but like potentially with his tongue, so they could actually communicate with her, so that they weren't having to write all the time.
Yeah, that is possible.
That's possible, but it's like this is a very interesting sort of thing because that's a very powerful breath. So like
it is.
Like maybe with just enough investiture, like you can break through those perception things, and it's just like, no, you're healed to, your true spiritual ideal, and I don't even care about those barriers, and because that divine breath is so powerful, splinter of endowment. Yeah,
maybe there's something to it with like the nature of breath as an investiture, because it's like compared to other investitures, it's very sticky and like it just like adds to your soul, as opposed to like regular breath, like when you get it, like adds to your soul. And I don't know, maybe there's something there of just like how it works.
Right, because it's different from like Stormlight and stuff, which like leaves.
Because it's endowment, because it's like a gift. So maybe it's a bit more like, I'm giving you something, so your body has more to work with, as opposed to just I'm realigning your body with what it thinks it should be like.
I guess we're talking about this now.
I guess we're talking about this now. Yeah.
A couple of things I get. So I'm very much on board with, because this is so much investiture that's being transferred. There are probably some extraordinary things that you can, like in the extreme case, imagine if a shard wanted to heal, like Harmony quote unquote healing Spook to being a full Mistborn, right? It's not healing, right? The healing was he restored his sight back to normal and things like that. But obviously, like a shard has a power to influence things way beyond the perception of the person they're healing, right? And so if you take a splinter of a shard, and so if you take a splinter of a shard, it's reasonable to say that maybe it can just heal better, right? The other factor that plays into this is that it seems like different magic systems have kind of different balance between the knowledge and the ability and the power of the healer versus the kind of the self-perception of the healee?
Recipient, yeah.
Patient. That's the word. Also known as healee. And so with something like Aeon Door, for example, it seems to me like the Elantrians have a lot more control over how they heal and what they heal than somebody like I don't know, a Surge Binder with access of healing, regrowth, progression, yeah. Because as an Elantrian, you are kind of writing like the formula that is going to, like, it's a very surgical kind of healing there. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter as much, I think, how the person perceives themselves. Like, there's a word of Brandon somewhere about, I want to say, cancers or tumors and how those would work with healing, right? And so if you, I think what the wob was that if you try to heal yourself, there is a chance that it won't work because it's kind of your, like, it's still part of you, right? But if you are, if a healer comes in and says, no, I know this is a problem. Yes, I know this is technically part of your body, but here, let's fix that. Then I think it might have a better effect.
Here's a thought I just had while you were talking. So we know, like, Stormlight healing and cosmic healing in general can't heal someone who is a Solent, because according to the soul, nothing is wrong. But if a returned, like, met someone like Kaza, whose skin was literally drifting away to smoke, could the divine breath heal that?
That's really interesting.
That's a good question.
My immediate reaction is, yeah, probably it could. And I think it's kind of got something to do with, kind of similar to how we were talking about Harmony healing Spook, where it's a bit more of like brute forcing it kind of thing. And so, yeah, I would. Yeah, my gut instinct said a divine breath would heal like a soul casting savant, but that might be wrong.
What I wonder if like the healing, right? I guess I'm just like wondering how that mechanically works. Did like Lightsong say a command when he healed Asusabron?
I believe so.
No, I
he
think
just
it
said
was.
Gave him
Yeah,
the
I think it was
breath
just
of
the
my
basic
life
one.
yours.
Yeah, my breath. Yeah.
I wonder if like you need to like visualize what you're healing. You know? I don't know, or it just automatically does it. Because the thing that I'm worried about with Kaza, we're just like, well, yo, we're in the weeds right now. Thanks, Eric. Because like what's happening with Kaza, right, is she's using Surge Binding so much, she's using Soul Casting so much that her body is like being changed, right? And presumably like her spiritual aspect is also being changed, right?
Her body is being changed because her spiritual aspect has changed.
So
finish up, yeah.
So like, I don't know, it's just interesting because most Cosmere healing is like, getting your body to align with your spiritual, right? And
yeah. So if it's the spirit that's taking the damage, and it's the spirit that's thinking it's.
But like, I think it's possible that the Divine Breath could heal that. But like, maybe like, I think the more weird the spiritual damage, I think it gets a little hairy. You know, like it'd definitely be able to heal Shardblade wounds, right? Like that'd be fine.
Oh, easy.
Oh yeah, easy.
That's like minimum. That's like gold could heal that. I mean, probably not, but you know.
No, I think gold could heal it.
I think it can.
Gold's.
I don't know. It is just interesting that like maybe the Divine Breath is like just a hack, but like what does the Divine Breath know to heal you to, right? With your spirit, right? Like what is you and things like that. And I guess the thought that appeared in my brain was like, if you visualize as like, yes, I want this person to stop turning into smoke, then the Divine Breath will actually do that. Like you could, there could be like some command aspect and visualization aspect to just like maybe target the healing a little bit in these like super weird cases. Whereas like physical healing, I don't know.
To me, makes sense if Divine Breaths were some kind of super powerful healing hack just from
really powerful, yeah.
Story perspective, it's like they're so rare and you have to find a turn who's willing to give you one willingly. Like you can't force it.
Yeah. And there's this whole other dimension where like we know endowment is erratic. It's just interesting because endowment is like usually giving these Divine Breath for like some sort of purpose. Like, I guess it's a healing purpose and just healing the right thing, I guess. I don't know.
And sometimes that purpose is as simple as like your daughter is going to get sick in a few years and here's the breath to heal her.
Yep.
So she doesn't die.
But that just connects with like, what is Vasher's like purpose? You know, what was endowment planning for Vasher, right? Because Vasher, you know, is very much alive and kicking.
It has been for a very long time.
Long time. So that just.
I think that's a Stormlight question.
Oh, very much. Oh yeah, I mean, Warbreaker is the prequel thing. Like even the Warbreaker sequel, Nightblood. Whenever we get that. Like, that's, again, just a Stormlight prequel, really.
Is it a Stormlight thing? Or is that Mistborn Era 4 thing?
Oh, boy.
I mean,
Galaxy brain thoughts.
Legitimately, though, like, in Mistborn Era 4, we're going to see lots of powerful people from powerful places, and, like, I would expect Vasher to be there, like... He hasn't seemed to make a lot of progress in figuring out what his goal is to do.
Well...
What if like all the like parts of honor were gathered in a room and like Vasher was just like my life to yours, my breath becomes yours, and then the Divine Breath like healed honor.
Well, that would be really crazy. I don't think that would be the case. Like,
I don't think Divine Breath are cool.
Oh. The Divine Breath weren't strong enough to save Grace there. Divine Breath wasn't strong enough to keep you in the podcast, Grace.
I see you have returned.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would probably require like just like so much investiture to like really like fuel that, but that is hilarious to think about. But I'm sure there are limits in just like the scale of investiture, right?
Yeah. I was looking for a word of Brandon on, because I was still wondering about, well, how does the breath heal? Like, what is the kind of spiritual ideal that the breath is healing you to, if your own spirit web is saying that no, this is how you're supposed to be?
Yeah.
And I thought I remembered the word of Brandon, and I couldn't find it quickly. Where somebody was wondering about why is it that when people receive just regular breath, they are able to hear better and see colors better and like receive all of these essentially divine augmentations. And if I remember the answer to this correctly, it was because with each breath, they become closer to divinity.
I remember this. You're not making that up. Yes, I remember that. We talked about this on the show, I think.
Not a dream wob.
No, not a dream wob. I remember this. I remember
this. This was not the vision I saw when I died.
Like each one it was like about the heightenings, right? That's like, each breath really like increases your ability like slightly. It's just like these heightenings are just like big levels.
Once you reach, what was it, like the second heightening, this is as good as as perfect as your pitch is going to get.
Yeah. Whereas like your pitch gets perfect the more it gets better the more breath you have.
Yeah.
Until you hit that level. Yeah.
Yep. And so in the context of this, I was wondering, well, what if divine breath is using, to some extent, Endowment's own like spiritual ideal, identity, spirit web, concept, whatever, and like pushes you in that direction. Maybe like, I don't know, it gets real funky, right? Because you are not turning into Endowment as you receive breaths, divine or not. But also maybe it kind of uses that as a base or as a template to say, oh no, this soul is not supposed to look like that.
Yeah, it brings you closer to that. It's not quite turning you into it, but
it's so interesting because this is just like in a deleted scene in Elantris, right? Where it's actualizing the Aeon in a Seon.
That was the inspiration for Return.
Yeah. Right.
Idea,
because he kind of cut that there, but it's just like, how does this work? And it is like, this is a divine breath. This is like, Endowment is, like, presumably, you die, you quickly go into Shadesmar, and Endowment's like, nah, I'm gonna give you this divine breath, and like, now you're coming back. And...
We should give them a choice.
Oh, yeah, that's true. She does offer them a choice, because Lightong does say that, yeah. Who knows what sort of subtle things Endowment can do in that process, right? Like with that investiture, like probably a lot. Like it's a lot more than just like a big breath, you know?
Yeah.
Or at least it could be, yeah.
It at least could be.
Like, I mean, if each breath has a specific purpose already, maybe there are like instructions like hidden inside each one.
Yep, like fortune cookie. Oh no, just kidding.
Return to fortune cookies.
Another thing about perception, not about the healing though, is how Returned think of themselves. That happens to matter a lot because we see in the Court of Gods, it's like, oh well, Blush Reavers believes to be pretty, and she's really busty and curvaceous, and is very pretty, and they just see themselves as gods, and so they're like just these.
It's the thing that Argent said a minute ago about bringing you closer to divinity, because they're not just like turned into their perfect self. They're also they're kind of they're mashed together of how they see themselves and what the individual considers like divine, how the individual considered like a holy or like a godly aspect. And so it's almost like that idea of bringing you closer to the divine even further, a step.
And not only that, if I recall correctly, all the way back from the Warbreaker annotations, it is not just about how the person returning views themselves, it's also about the societal expectation of what
Yes.
perfection is, right?
Which like in retrospect, yeah, totally makes sense with Cosmere, with perception being important.
Especially for cognitive beings.
Yeah.
I wonder how like Idrian returns look like, because in Idris, like this idea of you want to be kind of plain and you don't want to stand out.
That's
so I
super
wonder
true.
how that would reflect in what the returns look like.
Yeah,
they maybe like
what was the
change
first return
appearance
like?
less, or...
Yeah.
Also worth mentioning, I believe we have a word of Brandon saying that if a trans person dies, they come back as the gender they see themselves as.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the transformative power of the divine breath coming back is substantial.
Yeah, and just with that perception, like Vasher suppressed his divine breath, and it's like, no, I don't want to see myself that way, and you can like manipulate that with practice. Essentially, he can manipulate how he looks for sure.
Yes.
Which is
I
very
just thought this was
interesting.
it's a really interesting aspect, because unlike other things like that, it gives you fifth heightening and it gives you like healing. Healing kind of comes as like an aspect of just like investiture, kind of. Doesn't do that automatically, but like there's elements of it bringing you closer to the spiritual realm, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The heightening stuff comes just with breaths, but as far as I'm aware, maybe there is a super high heightening, but like shapeshifting isn't a thing in the heightenings.
Well,
I always found
the heightenings, yes.
Yes, and so I always found that it was the it's not quite shapeshifting, it's more just manipulating what you look like. I don't think Vasher could turn into a dog if he wanted to.
No, no, probably not.
I mean, maybe.
It'd probably take a lot of perception magics. Like, it would take a lot.
It always stuck out to me as like a weird thing that the divine breath lets you do. As like, it's like, oh yeah, also you can change how you look.
I kind of wonder if I almost liken that to forgery, where it's like, you can change, but it has to be plausible.
Yeah.
So like, you being born and having the ability to be like a few inches, like a little bit taller or a little bit shorter, or have like a slightly different skin or hair or eye color. It's all within the realm of possibility, but like you being born as an entirely different species isn't.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And the weird thing with perception is that there's the royal locks, which are so weird, and we're going to talk about Vo for sure.
Which is the first thing in our outline.
Yeah, it was the first thing in our outline, but that was like, oh, we should probably talk about what these are. And then I'm like, what about Cosmere healing? But like the royal locks are because the royal line came from the first returned. So that's like, and returned cannot normally have children at all, which in and of itself is kind of odd in a sense. That seems a little strange to me.
This might be a tangent we don't want to go into right now, which is how this entire conversation started.
That's right.
But it could be that the problem is not so much with the returned; it's the problem with cognitive shadows that have essentially come back to life.
Sure.
Which is what I suspect.
Okay. Yeah. It's just very interesting that like this aspect of shapeshifting, like the perception, just like you get to manipulate certain things. We see Vivenna, Vivenna and Ciri, they very much get to manipulate their hair, and presumably, like Vivenna looked Alethi in Stormlight, right?
Yep. Also has orange eyes.
Yeah. So like, she's clear. Like you can do a lot with that, and it's kind of sorta inheritable. Like that is all just extremely weird.
And it's not like it doesn't appear. I mean, I suppose we don't know what the Vo's like first kid was like, but it doesn't seem like it's gotten like Allomancy, that it's gotten diluted and weaker over the generations. Because
because it's been however many
people.
Yeah, there's been however many years, and they all seem to be able to manipulate the hair, like standard, like it's fine.
Like the royal locks, right? You only inherit it if like you're going to ascend to be the king, right?
If you are in line for the throne.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
It is super weird. So like that probably fixes the dilution aspect because it's not like evenly distributed, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, no, this person is in the direct line and they're the descendants of. So if like,
okay,
this
so
is so
for
weird to
example,
think about.
Ravenna was the oldest.
Yes,
but obviously all the kids could have inherited, so they all got it.
they all got it.
Ravenna's kids would get it. All of Ravenna's kids would get it.
Well, no, if
if
she took the throne, though.
If she took the throne, yeah.
Yeah.
But then if Ciri's kids then wouldn't.
That is my impression, that because Ciri did not become... Yeah, right, yeah. What?
Okay.
What?
That's really weird.
It's really weird and specific, right?
I have thoughts.
Okay, great, because this is just so weird.
So, kind of the most hand-wavy of all solutions could be, we could be dealing with some heavy-duty, bad mojo perception going on here.
Oh yeah,
right.
Probably. That's got to be involved.
Everyone thinks this is the case, and therefore this becomes the case, right? The other thing that could be going on is there might be something to kind of I hate to use the word ascension, but like to when an heir becomes the king or queen of Idris. Similarly to how there is kind of, and I think the parallel is nice, in Halandran, when a god king kind of passes the mantle onto the next one, there is the whole like secret passing of all of the breaths.
Yeah.
And that is a ceremony that only select people know about, and it's secret, and it's things like that. And so maybe in the passing down of the mantle of King or Queen of Idris, there's also a hidden thing where it's like, oh, okay, so here is how you get exclusivity to the royal locks, or here is how to pass on the royal locks to your heirs.
I like perception better, right? Because it's like, in a sense, the only reason why a monarch has power is because people agree they have power. In a sense, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
No,
Unless you're Suzerain.
Like,
well, I mean, they all accept that he is the ruler, right? He's the god king, like the king's in the name. They all think it's like, oh yeah, that's the leader, right? They just don't know. They don't really perceive that he can't do a lot of kingly business, right? Like they don't really know. The general populace doesn't know. So that could answer that, but it's like, King of Idris? Like if Vivenna suddenly became the queen of somewhere totally different, unlike Roshar, I don't know, would her kids then get the royal locks? It's like that's.
I kind of like the idea that there's some like secret, like I'm likening it to like snapping, and that there's like a process for that where you like unlock the royal locks.
And so snapping is not where I was gonna go with that, but it's like, so maybe the passing of the mantle of the God King was not the best example, but learning or teaching the God King how to have kids. There is a step there, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so it could be similar to that, because there's a lot of parallels between the God King and the Idrian royal family. And so in my head, a lot of these things are connected, right? So we begin with Vo, who was the first returned, and he either was taught or figured out how to have kids, and then that kid and their kids then became the Idrian royal family. And so you have these kind of parallel tracks where on one hand, the kingdom of Hanaud, later on Halandran, you have a full returned who then every now and then has to figure out how to have kids or be told how to have kids. And on the other hand, you have the royal family who are descendants of a full returned. And so they can have children normally, but maybe what they need to figure out or be told is how to pass on this essentially fragment of returnedness down their line.
See what you're saying.
Yeah, The problem with that is that there's no evidence that that's actually the case, because they hate Awakening, they hate everything about it. Maybe if there was such a thing like that, they don't know it's kind of like Awakening, or they don't know it's a magical process, rather. Sorry. But like,
I mean, I don't know. The king just like could keep it secret. He authorized a spy to like get a bunch of breath. It wouldn't shock me if there was some like dark secret to the Adrian royal family where they actually did have like, dark, but like they hated Awakening a little bit less than they say they did because it keeps them in power.
I guess
it could be like, I don't know, hair dye made out of tears of Evgeni or something, and they just dye the kid's hair when it's a little baby.
No,
and they just stays like that.
They have to eat some hair.
Like,
yeah. It doesn't look like Awakening, so they can kind of excuse it, you know.
I guess I just have like a hard time thinking like that there was never an Adrian royal who had a bunch of kids, but then the king was assassinated and couldn't. Like, I'm sure that happened sometime, right? Before he could tell the secret, but like it's always been passed down, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it would have to be when it would have to be gifted to the children when they're born, like at a super young age.
No.
But no one.
But we're saying that like the reason why the new monarchs give their children the royal lux is because information literally needs to be given, and it's like that part just doesn't seem correct to me.
Okay,
like right?
Yeah.
But there's something else weird about returned children, and this is something I noticed when doing research that I have an issue.
Okay.
Ooh, go for it.
So Brandon has said that even though like babies do occasionally return, and the priests can use those babies,
which is weird,
they prefer the next God King to be the descendant of the previous God King. And that is why they wanted Ciri and Susebron to get together.
Right.
But like, if the baby is half returned, half human, how would they be the next God King? Doesn't the God King have to be a returned? Like,
maybe
that is weird. Like,
I don't remember enough of Warbreaker lore to like dig into this. So is the problem that the children of the God King, is the problem that the God Kings can't have children at all under normal circumstances? Okay. Or is it that their children are stillborn?
Okay, so according to there's multiple layers to this. There is official propaganda. There is what the people in the world believe. And there is what, Brandon and we know from Wobs and annotations.
Right.
Okay.
The official story is that the God King has a child. The child is stillborn and returns, and that's the next God King.
Right.
Okay.
People in the world, like Ciri and Susebron, or Ciri in particular, comes to believe that it is impossible for Return to have children, and there's, a lot of evidence for that because you need to do something specific for a Return to be able to have a child.
Right.
Even though we don't know what it is.
Maybe there's a special sex pulse.
Well, some sort of command thing. We'll talk about that.
But yes, and so through annotations and stuff, we know that, yes, Returns can't have children. There needs to be something specific to do it. And that the Adrian royal family is a descendant from one such Return, though, who had a child.
Right.
And that the weirdness of their royal locks and stuff comes from.
Right. So you're saying that, did the priests really say that they prefer to have the previous God King? Yeah, no, that's the thing they say in the book,
annotation thing.
Yeah.
That's like a annotation thing.
So
I don't know.
Are they intending for the God King to do the specific thing to have a child, and then they're just hoping by random chance that child stillborn and returns?
Well,
what? That's really weird.
Does the God King need to be returned?
Yeah.
And does it need? I have a different question.
Hold on. The annotation is in the doc. Do you want me to read the exact sentence?
I do. Let's go into Wob mode.
I want to hear it.
Let's go.
I have an idea.
Yes. All right. Let's hear it.
The God King's priests take an infant returning as a sign that it's time to change God Kings. At that point, they choose a wife for the God King and hope that she'll be able to conceive the next God King. They'd much, much rather that the God King be the literal child of the previous God King.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Wait.
No. Okay, Okay. How about this? I think I've got it. They aren't hoping that the wife will have a child that they can use that. They wish the God King could have children because they'd much rather not have to faff about with this whole finding a returned baby thing. They'd prefer it if the God King could have kids. Is an interpretation of that sentence. My other theory I had was it doesn't say that. No. The warp does say that it would be the direct descendant, like it would be the child of that God King. But yes, I feel like it could be interpreted that way.
But like the entire, like
No.
The entire like premise of that paragraph is the God King's priest take an infant returning as a sign to change God King. So the returning already happened. And so then it's like, then they pick a wife, and then but like the infant return's already there. That's why I'm confused.
Yeah.
What? And Susabron wasn't the literal child of the previous God King.
Yeah. So he was presumably just like a baby that returned.
This makes it sound like there's a way to. So let me read the next paragraph because now I'm even more confused.
The next paragraph is interesting.
What? Now an infant has indeed returned. The priests see this as a major vindication of their faith, as they made the wedding contract with Idris 20 years ago, and now, just when the marriage was to happen, an infant returned. The problem is, now they've got to push Ciri to get pregnant because they're on a deadline. They don't want to have to replace the God King with this infant, the infant that did return. They'd rather use his own child, hence the push for her to have a child. But if she doesn't, they'll go with plan B.
Okay, got it.
So throw out what I just said.
I do not got it.
No. Okay. So here's what happens. The priests are so it doesn't have. We're not talking about Susabron and Ciri.
Ciri? Yeah,
specifically.
Ciri. Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah.
So the priests are monitoring what happens everywhere in Halandran. And so let me go back to the previous paragraph. And so when they see or when they find out that an infant has returned, they take that as a sign from endowment, from some divine source, that it's time. Sure. That it's time to change God Kings. Mm-hmm. And now they have two paths in front of them. One of them is, well, we would prefer to take the current God King, find a wife for him, get her with child, and then make that child the next God King. If that doesn't pan out, plan B is to grab that baby that just returned, that was the sign that it's time to change God Kings. And then we make that baby the next God King.
Yeah. So in that, you're saying that if the previous God King, if the God King did have a child, that child does not need to be returned to be the God King. That's what you're saying.
Unless the children of the God King are automatically returned, or they can be made to return, or something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing that's getting me. It's like, wait, what? Like, what? That's my problem right now.
We have to keep in mind there might be oddities involved with the transfer of 50,000 breaths.
That's fair. Because my point was going to be, if it only takes one... If it's okay for the God King to not be returned, it only takes one non-returned God King, and all of the God Kings after that can now have kids, because that one can now have kids. Their kids can have kids. Their kids.
Yeah,
like you've broken the whole weird returned kind of kid cycle.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
And I mean that's broken with Vo, like literally.
Yeah. I mean,
day one.
First rotate. Yeah. Week one.
So you guys are saying that like with like 50,000 breath, there's just so many that no one can tell that the next God King like isn't actually returned.
So that's one thing I thought.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's
like
one thing
that.
I thought. Or alternatively, like this is a little morbid, but maybe what you can do is you can literally like start the breath transfer. So the father God King starts dumping his breath while you kill the child.
Yeah, but you're not
I had-
guaranteed
yeah.
that like you'll actually get a splinter of endowment. Like,
Well, no. I'm saying like instead of getting endowment to return the kid, you were doing it yourself because you have so much investiture, like pumping into the kid.
I did have a thought of like while we were talking that maybe you give the mother the divine breath while she's with the child, because if the reason they're kind of children is because they are stillborn, then the breath would heal the stillborn child.
but
We
But
don't know if that's actually the reason. That's just like
Yeah.
what they say.
and also
that's
like,
just like yeah.
Susabran and Ciri, like if they're not in danger. Like this annotation actually says it's like, yeah, they're just gonna go into one of the islands in the sea and live the rest of their life totally fine. So it's like Susabran is never giving up his divine breath in this process.
Yeah.
That's the
yeah,
thing.
Okay.
Right.
Like they are specifically
Yeah,
not doing that.
But he still has a lot left.
Well, yeah, I'm just I don't. I'm actually more confused now about Return having kids.
Shall we move on to Vo?
Let's
'Cause
just
I feel
talk
like
about. Let's talk
Grace
about.
is dying to talk
Okay.
about Vo.
Okay. Let's
Grace, tell us
begin
about
this
Vo.
podcast.
Let's begin. This point one in our podcast outline.
Scroll up to the beginning of the document we have. Okay.
yeah.
So Vo was the first returns. He and some of his people were like sailing on a ship along the coast of the lands that would later become Henald and Halandran. And he died and returned. And he was only alive for a week, but among that week, he had the 5 visions, started like a whole religion cult, had a child with his wife, and then, yeah, he died, and his like shipmates founded the city or the country of Henald, and his wife and that line became the Idrian royal family.
Who were the kings of Henald before Vasher overthrew them, and they had to run to Idris. That's what happened, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's a busy week.
It's a busy week. So I have some questions. First of all,
I mean, I think we have a very important question,
what's that?
and that is, how did he figure out how to have kids?
He's just so good. He's God. He's really good in the bedroom, Argent. He's really good. He knows
got
the
the
things to
moves.
say. Yeah, he's got the moves. He's always been good.
You joke, but he might have known the things to say.
Yeah, no, seriously. That's surprisingly plausible.
His wife's like, "You've awakened something inside of me."
Oh God. Maybe endowment was just like, this person knows what to say, so I'm gonna pick this person. By the way, we don't actually like legit know if Vo is actually the actual first returned. That's just like the first returned in lore, and like we like Brandon says returned happen everywhere on Malthus, so like
Yeah.
there could have just been somewhere on the other side of the world that was actually first and just died, and we just didn't hear about them because they were in the middle of nowhere. Like that's totally plausible.
I mean, well, if Vo is like the first one,
Yeah.
to like found this like country,
Yep.
maybe he comes from another country where returning was actually super common, and like they actually just knew how to have kids.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Because we know return happened like everywhere on Malthus, and
Yeah.
I guess I just still think that it's still a rare event. And like, if they're from a place where it was more common, then they probably wouldn't like have a big mythology about it, because all the people on the ship are like, yeah, I don't care. This is super common, whatever.
Were Vo and his boat the original settlers of the continent that became?
Not a continent, because it's a
landlocked sea.
It's a landlocked sea. It's an inner sea. And they were just sailing, presumably like from one end to the other or whatever.
I want to know this map, guys.
I think so.
Yeah, I know.
It's not entirely clear, but I think the Pankal people were like already there.
Yeah, the Pankal were already there. That's why they never liked the Haladrin. Yeah. They were the natives. Ah, good. Some colonialism in this too. Fantastic. Great.
Love it.
And then there's like Austra? That's like, what? Like, what? Wasn't there like some weird wob about Austra that's like, Austra isn't endowment? I'm gonna do some research.
There's
there's a couple, I think.
There's something really weird about that.
There's one where somebody was wondering if Austria was an avatar.
So this wob. It's so nice. I just searched Austra, 9 wobs. Makes it real easy to find. That's nice. Blaze 1616, fantastic. Austra, is that endowment? You referenced him as male, but endowment's female, so I'm dying to know. And Brandon just says, no, Austra is not. And this is not paraphrased. And Brandon then says, so who do you think Austra is? and then he... and then Blaze says, since it's not endowment, personally, I think it's a return from long ago. And Brandon says, that's a very good conclusion.
Hey, Google, what is the definition of autonomy?
Oh, no, it's too soft. Doesn't appear on the microphone.
No. Also, I realized I had my home mini muted, so it came from the phone, and the phone is super quiet right now.
Yeah.
But I think the joke stands.
Yeah.
It could be an avatar of autonomy.
Yeah, that's my second option. First option is the shard that's currently present. Second one is the shard that's going around leaving bits of itself on the planets.
I guess avatar of endowment is also a possibility, but considering that at least these days Brandon considers avatars to be the shard, like he thinks of them equivalently, then I think avatar of endowment makes it less likely.
I was going to say, would you need an avatar on the planet you're on? But then we don't know anything about avatars, so we can't answer that question.
No, we don't. We don't know anything about this. So, like, that's very interesting, right? Because, like, you would think, Vo had the 5 visions from this god of colors, Austra, right? Yep. And we would think, normally, that it's just like he talked with endowment, right?
Yeah. That endowment just endowed 5 visions. She was feeling real generous that day.
There's a clear god here, but it's like that. Yeah. It's more complicated than that, right? But like he wouldn't he would come back. I mean, I guess endowment doesn't have to take away all of his memories if she did really want them to know something, but like it doesn't seem like she does. She doesn't even care.
I don't know whether the memory thing is optional, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
So
we do got to talk about the memory stuff.
We do have. I remember back in the day, I think when we first found out that Kelsier was sticking around in a body, we were wondering whether he would have memories, right? Because we suspected or speculated at least that if you are if you are somebody who dies and you're now a cognitive shadow or just a cognitive aspect, then you're fine. Like you still have all your memories, but maybe the act of acquiring a body once again,
like stapling back into a body.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Erases that. I think the fact that the heralds and the fused exist kind of disprove that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
they seem to remember at least some things.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe endowment can just like optionally take away the memories for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the returned are just such specific cognitive shadows, right? Because they can just die, right? Like that's not a problem. They just die. You just slit their throat. Like it happens in the book. Like they die like they're people. Not. They're ageless, Special. But they definitely die.
I think the kind of repeated immortality of the Heralds and the Fused is more of a product of how things are on Roshar. Like I think that's an intentional thing. Like I think if you just go and like find Kelsier and kill him post Secret History or post Band's Mourning, I think he'd be dead. Yeah.
I mean, depending on the specifics on how he got a body, but if he hemalurgy spiked it in, but like I assuming that you can staple your soul back with hemalurgy, which I guess happened. Yeah, you could just murder Kelsier, and I mean, I wonder if he would still stick around in the cognitive. But
yeah, I was wondering about that too, actually.
Yeah,
because what I was just thinking was that because he's alive because he's so suffused with Preservation's investiture.
Yeah.
So if he got stapled to a body in real life and the body got killed, he's still suffused with Preservation's investiture.
Yeah.
Whereas that's just not true he had, like, in Alphys. To our knowledge, at least. Like we don't know if the returned actually like persist in the cognitive realm or something.
Well, I kind of the way that I'm thinking of it is that the divine breath kind of acts like a glue. It's not something that's it's hard because we do know that the divine breath does kind of suffuse the cognitive shadow to keep it sticking around.
Yeah,
but more of it acting like glue between the physical body and the cognitive body, and so when you take away the glue, the cognitive shadow would fade like any other.
But that's how I've been thinking about it as well. Yeah.
But I think there was some part of it about how the divine breath does fill in some gaps for the cognitive aspect. I have one last theory about Vo.
Okay.
So V is the Roman numeral for 5. We all know that 5 is important, and so what if this is all a lie and Vo was 5 returned, and that's why they had 5 visions? And this was just a real lucky boat. It was just a super lucky boat that had like 5 returned on it, and they founded a religion, and then that explains why so much got done in a week, you know?
So Eric, you want to talk about something?
Yeah. Let's. So when we were talking about just the mechanics at the beginning of Returned, and how like the Returned don't have their memory when they come back, right? But then they can slowly get their memory back until an important moment. What does that remind you of? It reminds me of what cultivation did to Dalinar. There it's like, yeah, it was gone for a while, but it's gonna come back, and it can come back. And that's just an interesting parallel. I mean, obviously makes sense that Shards could do that. So that almost makes me feel like Endowment's specifically doing that, rather than it being a necessary thing. That it's like, maybe it's easier for her to move the pieces that she wants when she deciding to return people. So it is weird. I mean, I guess the word of Brandon about Endowment being erratic, we shouldn't maybe look too much into it. It's like, wouldn't it be useful to have someone with memory at like some point ever? But it's just like, we have no evidence that actually happens. Like, it's weird. Yeah. That's weird.
It is very similar to what cultivation did, though.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like Vasher's ever gotten his memories back, which is very interesting.
I mean, we don't really know anything about that, do we?
No, we don't. But I mean, at least at the end of Warbreaker, he's like, yeah, I don't know who my name is. I have no clue.
Interesting.
Right? So, like, maybe since in Stormlight, maybe he did, but we don't know that.
I personally don't think he has, but I also wouldn't put it past him if he had at one point where he was like, I don't want this. Just like use that memory. Forget it all again.
Speaking of memory, we didn't talk about Vo. Like, presumably his memory was removed, and his wife's like, no, I am your wife. I remember this, and let's go. Let's do this. Which, that's canonical. That happened.
I mean, assumedly, her husband's just returned as, like, this, like, Adonis, like, figure.
Well, we don't
She's
know,
going to
though.
take advantage of that. Come on, you know.
But see, the thing is, Ben, if this person was actually the first returned, or at least to the knowledge of that ship, right?
Yes.
They wouldn't have any cultural perceptions of, like, divinity, right? So it's not necessarily true that like he would look ultra like Adonis-y, you know? Because part of that is cultural perception above the return.
They assumedly would already have a religion, and that religion, I mean, it's a pretty common thing in religions. That's
resurrection.
gods are pretty
pretty
good
defined.
Looking, you know.
Well, that resurrection makes you divine. I guess. Yeah, they tend to like resurrection. I hear.
Oh yeah.
I don't think a belief in divinity is necessary. Like, I think the returned look the way they look because of the people's perception of what just perfection is and what beauty is and things like that. Not necessarily because they believe that the returned should look perfect.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's room for Vo to appear in lots of different ways that are a little unexpected.
I've been playing a lot of Hades recently, so I've got hot gods on the brain, you know.
Whatever that was,
nice.
though, it's presumably still hot by these societal standards.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, right, yeah, that makes sense.
For all we know, what Vo's ship considered hot, like, we would be like, oh, super ugly. To them, it was like, still.
I mean, like, certainly the
short and pudgy.
The cult of the returned that existed in Hanold, later Hallandren, they had their whole religion about the iridescent tones, and they were like, no, don't tell the returned about their past life, right? Like, that was their thing. But like with Vo, they're like, his wife could just be like, no, dude, let me tell you. And maybe Vo remembered some stuff when his wife told him, right? Because
the other thing I was thinking is that endowment could have just not taken his memories away.
Well, that's also possible.
If he was the first returned, then if he was returned with the purpose to have these visions and to have the most divine sex with his wife and then die.
So good. It was good.
Then he'd get his memories back, you know, before it happened, you know.
Yeah, he's got to remember how to do things.
I got to know how to have children as a return. I guess, well, the complication is that if the 5 visions came from Austra and not endowment, but like it could simply be that the 5 visions were from endowment in that returning process, and then there's some avatar of autonomy that is Austra is like, oh yeah, no, I totally did it. Kind of like what's happening with Skate.
That is, yeah, I actually like that.
Or
yes,
he returned. You know, maybe he wasn't actually the first returned, and there was others in the sporadic and whatever.
Yeah.
And Austra, someone other than endowment, saw this and was like, this is a good opportunity, and came in and like gave his memories back for him. And like gave him these visions, and
I dig that. I dig that.
Oh, it was kind of like a subtle manipulation by one shard under endowment's notice, kind of thing.
Like how at the Battle of Thalen Field, Odium was like, "I'm going to give you back your memories," but it was too late. But it was like something similar. But the shard, whoever was responsible, got there in time that they actually could do.
I like that.
Shards having a light touch is pretty on brand.
Yep. Yep.
No, it's brand on, not on brand.
I like, that's probably my favorite Vo theory thus far. I like that because that at least logically makes sense, and it also, it's so weird that endowment would just return people and they just die in a week, and it's like, yo, this is what I got. Like, her endowment's motivations are so bizarre and weird. I just cannot even fathom what the hell she's doing.
Yeah, because now that I think about it, like, if endowment is returning people so they can serve some purpose of hers, like, you kind of need this establishment that is the court of gods or something like it for these people to live long enough to serve their purpose. Unless, like, the first several generations of returned were like, endowment was returning people who had conveniently died like just before she needed them.
Especially,
I mean, that could have been what she was doing, you know.
I
mean, you can get a lot done in a week if you really want to. Like,
it's just interesting because it's like, couldn't endowment have just like created the returned in such a way that they didn't die in a week? Like, she's a shard, she could very easily do that, presumably, right?
Ooh, I just
Perhaps.
I kind of think. So, I mean, this is just my take on like endowment in her personality.
Yeah,
I kind of think her take on all this is she kind of has this attitude of like, I'm not really meddling. I'm just giving you the tools to figure this out on your own, and then taking a step back and like letting you handle it yourself.
Mm-hmm. And she just does it a bunch, so it's like, well, I mean, I have 20 plans in order. Probably one of them will work. That's fine.
I wonder if so magics in the Cosmere are normally an unconscious thing that just is a result of a reaction between the shard and the planet.
Okay, yes, right.
So what if the whole, whilst endowment is giving out these breaths and it is kind of her doing these things, she's far more involved in the magic than any other. What if just the whole system of her giving out breaths is something that came about naturally as a reaction of her being on the planet? It's not something she designed.
Well,
she just suddenly discovered one day, oh, this thing is the thing that exists on the planet, and I could give it to people.
Well, there's a theory. I think we talked about this way back on our endowment podcast back in 2018 or something, long ago. And I think
4 times.
Yeah. Where I think the idea that's plausible, because Awakening's fairly new, that maybe endowment arrived on Nalthis pretty late in the timeline, like not like directly after the shattering, right? And then like I would assume that when she invested in the planet, then that's when breath started. Like, I don't think she needs to do a specific thing other than just generally suffusing the planet with her power, right?
And that's probably around the time when Vo returned.
Something like that, right? And like maybe like sometime later when she's like, oh, I can do this other thing, neat. Because she has to specifically decide to do that. I think it would be a capital D decision. Remember capital D decision? We don't talk about that very much.
Because it's mentioned literally once.
So if you're listening, there's a thing in the Elantris Ars Arcanum in the 10th anniversary where it capitalizes initiation and it capitalizes a shard's decision, capital D, regarding initiation.
Damn.
Yeah. We don't know what it means, but presumably it's something like this, I guess. I don't know. I have another thing that I want to talk about.
Is it the second bullet point in our outline?
No, it is not. It is not.
We're not there yet.
No.
That's what we just talked about.
So, again with memory and stuff, I still find it exceedingly strange that Denth and Shashara are siblings, and then Arsteel and Yeasteel also siblings. Both pairs of siblings died and both returned, and they all know the familial relationship. It's like, what? What is going on here?
Yeah.
And like, Shashara would be like, I mean, I guess they all returned around Hallandren, right? Because that's what they persisted on.
Yes,
and
but also a long time ago.
A long time ago, but like she was named Glory Singer, Shashara, by the Cult of the Returned. So it's just interesting that like you have two pairs of two people who are siblings. Like, did they die simultaneously? And Endowment's like, yo, I'll do that. And then like another pair of siblings died. And I'm like, yo, I got you here too, fam. Don't worry. Like what? And if they died separately, like what is happening? What is happening? Okay. How do they remember this? What?
It's like Arsteel died, and Yestiel, who was still alive, was like, yo, you're my brother. And then Yestiel died and returned, and Arsteel was like,
yo, you're my brother.
You're my brother.
Okay, yeah, all right, fine.
Yep.
And then we did it again, and Endowment's just like, no. Yeah.
So at least for the memory thing, I think there is room for the whole keep the pasts of the returned secret from them. That could be a relatively recent development, like from the past few centuries. And so it is possible that things weren't as secret back when these people were returning.
But they were. Vasher doesn't know anything about his past.
Vasher is not one of the other 4.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Vasher's different.
So it could be that because the other 4 are 2 pairs of siblings, they could have all like bended the rules a little bit, right? So maybe Denth dies and Shashara's like, no, screw the rules. Let me tell you about yourself. and then Denth kind of returns the favor, or vice versa, right? And the same thing happens with Arsteel and Yestiel. There's an opportunity here in all of this, considering how influential the 5 scholars were for the history of Nalthas and the Cosmere, really?
The Cosmere, yeah.
With Nightblood.
Yeah.
This could all be stuff that Endowment had to an extent foreseen back in the day, and she was like, let's say Denth dies, his first death, and Endowment's like, oh, so if I return him, and then also return his sister, and then also return these 2 people, and also this homeless guy, they're going to.
I like him. I call him Basher.
I like him. They're going to become nerds together, and they will do this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing, and then eventually Nightblood will make its way to Roshar.
You know, all I can say to that is that the spiritual realm is a hell of a drug. It's like, damn, like
maybe for the sibling thing, like the priests weren't going to tell them, and then Denth saw Shashara and was like, she's hot, and then the priests were like, nope.
The Returned are just all horny. Like, and thanks for giving me this for this. Because Denth and Shashara had the royal locks, so it's an inheritable trait that they're horny from Poe. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a fact.
That's canon.
That's canon. Vivenna and Ciri both super horny. Because that's what you describe Vivenna as, and Fafin, and Ringer. I play enough Who's That Cosmere character that I know all their names. All the siblings. Do you know
King Idris's actual name?
Yes, I do. Ben doesn't, but I do.
I know his actual name. It's Idris Elba.
No, get out. But really though, Denth and Shashara having the royal locks is very interesting, because that means they were part of the royal family before Vasher overthrew the royal family, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
I had to replay bits of the timeline in my head.
Yeah, yes. I know. There's a lot going on here.
Shashara and Denth joined Vasher in the menu, right? So they
Denth initially tried. Yeah. I don't remember from our 5 Scholar podcast when I remember.
Eventually he decided to join his.
Yes, right.
So but Vasher overthrew their relatives.
Yeah,
and they were like, we're still.
They might have been down with it,
or descendants maybe.
Yeah. We don't know how long it was when the 5 Scholars happened until the Many War. We don't really know how long that is. I would probably guess it's less than 100 years, honestly, because it didn't seem like in Hoyd's story that was a particularly big era. Like there was a period of discovery, and then the Many War kind of happened, and then everything changed.
Yeah, call it a generation.
Yeah. It's just interesting how much Denth and Shashara knew of their past. If they're just like, Vasher, you overthrew those guys? Yeah, I didn't like them anyway. Or I had no idea.
If they're members of the royal family, their histories would be pretty extensively known by many people. It's not like you're a random guy just on the street, so it could be
like Vasher.
If they just returned. Yeah. So they'd be returned, and it's oh, you're the heir to Thingy. And
yes, heir to Thingy. Yes, that's what happens.
I just returned. Why is there a painting of me sitting next to the king there?
Well, but they wouldn't look like that, probably.
Yeah. They'd look way sexier.
Yeah.
But similar, I feel probably similar enough that
probably recognizably so, yeah.
I don't know. I think Stenimar and Lightsong are
but maybe you'd see same facial structures and stuff, how much would that change?
I don't know. I feel like that's putting I'm Stenimar.
Okay.
And then there's Dwayne Johnson.
Okay, how about this though? What if you, when you were born, instead of the life you lived Dwayne The Rock Johnson's life and became a massive buff bodybuilder? You'd be massive, but you'd still look like you.
I don't know where we're going with this. I'm gonna be honest.
I forgot.
I really don't know where we're going with this.
We're debating how similar, like, would you recognize a picture of yourself after you return?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I reckon you would be able to. I reckon you absolutely.
Fair, I
Also,
guess.
also
maybe.
because like you have a lot of investiture, so you're connected to spiritual mumbo jumbo, so you'd probably recognize it. I mean, sure, why not?
You know what I wonder?
In the
This is
spiritual realm, they're the same.
related. What if it was Denth and Shashara who were responsible for Vasher essentially overthrowing the family that would become the Adrian royal family?
Well, if I recall, it was that Vasher pushed to start a war, and then that got really out of hand. So like the story. Oh, that's right. The stories kind of differ as to what actually occurred, so we don't really know. Because like in some situations, like Kalad was said to be like an advisor to the kings and stuff. So it's not really clear. We did more research about this in the 5 Scholar episodes that I don't remember anymore. So go listen to that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this is not relevant to this episode, so
no, but
or not as relevant as other things could be.
Yeah, it's just so weird. Endowment. Why did you do this? Why did you just like do all this stuff with this 5 Scholars? I just can't. I want to see more Endowment. What the hell's going on with Endowment? What is any of this?
I want to ask Karen how much she hates the timeline of Warbreaker.
God, yeah.
Because the things that are canon in Warbreaker is like, well, lots of people say different things. It's like, yeah, that's really helpful for me to build a canonical timeline. Thanks, Brandon. Great.
I'd say it's great. Like in Mistborn, when there's a bunch of misinformation, it's great because we have a full trilogy where all the misinformation was revealed, but we've only got one Warbreaker book. So
where's Zaka with an X? People are all about like Exis, but like, look, I remember Zaka. You know, the Siri
interesting.
mentioned
I say
Zaka.
Xixis.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. It has an X. It doesn't make any sense how to pronounce it. You can pronounce it however you want in the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
Did we have any theories on how a return has kids that we didn't talk about? Because I think I kind of covered mine, but I guess
I think there's got to be some sort of commandy thing.
If the divine breath isn't used up in the process, then that really limits the options of like what we know about the magic system.
So here's my thinking. I think that the reason the returned can have kids is the same reason that I believe all cognitive shadows can have kids. Whatever that reason is, right? Maybe like you come back and
I thought you were going to tell us, but no, it's like, no, I don't actually have an answer to that. I'm like,
is that something we definitely? Is that something we definitely know that cognitive shadows can't have kids? None of them, not any that we've seen.
No, we are in Argent canon right now.
Okay, that's fine. Right. Okay, cool.
So not words of Brandon, definitely words of Argent here.
So I think that none of the cognitive shadows that return in this way can have kids. That includes Kelsier, that includes the heralds post them becoming heralds, that includes the fused, obviously post them becoming fused. And if that is the case, which obviously I believe is, then it feels gimmicky to me that if the returned can fix their fertility problem with breath or awakening, but not other means. Like, I would expect other cognitive shadows to also be able to get around this problem with other magical means. Whether that is like just healing, whether it is, the secret cognitive shadow sex pose, whether it is perception.
So, first of all, I don't necessarily agree with the premise that cognitive shadows can't have children. I just can't fathom the reason why that would need to be the case. Like, why? I can't even fathom why that needs to be the case for returned. I'm going to be totally honest. Because it's like, you're a human body, you bleed, you gotta eat. I guess your body, like, you're kind of dead and being subsisting on the investiture, kind of, right? But like,
creating life. And obviously we want to try not to get into like real world religions in this and beliefs, but like creating life in the Cosmere is in some ways literally magical, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
The innate investiture of the child has to come from somewhere, right? And maybe the fact that you as the parent are no longer strictly speaking alive, you kind of look like you're alive, but there are like you died even if you came back.
Because like that's kind of how I was thinking. Maybe that's why the returned can't, is because they're using the same body that died, and it's one of the reasons I think the heralds can, because they get new bodies. So
I think there are issues with like a living cognitive shadows producing life.
There's some awakened objects applying lawn. There's like,
I'm gonna press a button.
To be fair, it wasn't that loud, but we can definitely hear it. Like,
we can just hear it when you talk. I guess I'm just like, why?
I said, so the way I'm thinking of it is, we know return can't normally have kids, and I think that's because their body died and they've been put back in their body, and the body's dead. So even though the heart's still beating and they still need to eat and they still poop and stuff, I don't know. There's some magical spiritual thing that says
because their body was dying. Their body did died, in fact die.
You can't create new life because of that.
But I don't think that needs to apply with fused, right?
Yeah, so fused are using someone else's body, which is still alive.
Should be fine.
And heralds they get new bodies, so I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I think, because then also whilst we were talking, I was thinking of other ways that we could do. They could have kids which doesn't involve breath, and I was thinking maybe using the breath. I was thinking maybe, you know how Vasher and Dent spend all their time as like people-looking people. Maybe when you're in people-looking people mode, then you can have kids. Then that doesn't really work with the explanation as it's your body that's stopping you. So I have a solution that doesn't work with my theory on why it doesn't work.
Good talk.
Good talk.
I have a theory that doesn't work. Here it is.
I have a theory that doesn't work, and I have a solution that doesn't work to the theory that doesn't work.
Great. Yeah. This is the hard-hitting analysis you want from Shardcast. Us being like, we have no idea how this works. Let's go.
Yeah.
I feel like this is definitely going to be one of those things that once we know, we're like, that's so obvious and simple. Why didn't we guess that?
Yeah, it's going to be just like the whole, like, the location thing with, like, Celish magic. So it's like, oh, it's in the cognitive realm. Oh, okay, cool. Like, one sentence. All right, great, cool. Got it. Makes sense. As opposed to, like, the very complicated theories that happened before Arcanum about it came out.
Okay. So what if returned are cognitive shadows? So on the like isles, there's like a perpendicularity, and they go into the cognitive realm, and they get pregnant there.
Great, flawless.
I mean, this is not the worst theory in the world. It's better than mine, to be quite honest.
I hate the fact that I can't say no to that.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
So maybe the real answer
Sorry.
is,
I just had a thought. So you know how Nalthis has like a customs office?
Yeah.
So like you go through the perpendicularity and they're like, welcome to customs. Are you here to leave or are you here to sex? And then like there's like arrows on the floor. I don't know.
That's why they call it the expanse of the vibrance. It's very vibrant with emotions.
Life.
Yeah, life. Yes, let's go with that. So to TLDR, we have no idea how this ends. We have no idea.
I did want to, just because they're fun, mentioning some of the other like ways returned are treated in society.
Oh yeah. Lead us in.
Oh yeah, go for it.
That sounds
fun. So returns happen like everywhere on Elthis.
Yep.
And so like different places treat them differently. Halandrin treats them like gods. Idrians just kind of treat them like normal people. But in like WOBs and annotations, Brandon has mentioned a couple other societies.
Oh boy.
So one is a mountain society where whenever someone dies in a way that could be considered heroic, a very wealthy person will buy the body in the hopes of getting a returned slave.
Ooh, that's cool.
That's great.
And he's also said that in some places, returned are treated like vampires because they are dead and come back to life and feed on the souls of others, basically. And that in those places, returned wear black because it's like easy to awaken, and also like probably vampire black. I don't know, just fits thematically.
Man, Vasher's emo phase was a lot.
Oh man, I want a story in Vampire Returned land. That sounds amazing.
Can we read some fanfics about that? That sounds awesome. Like Dracula, but he's just like a returned who's an awakener and is just like ruling over this little kingdom. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Vampshire.
I will say, getting a returned slave kind of seems a little sketchy, considering you'd need to give them breath, and breath kind of has a lot of value, but maybe it has less value over there. I don't know.
I mean, I guess the value of having someone who can like miraculously heal you of any wounds.
And a country where slavery exists probably has a lot less of value on a piece of people's soul.
Okay, right, sure, all right, fair. That makes sense, Ben.
That just sounds like health insurance. Like you dump a whole bunch of money in that.
Modern health insurance is just a bunch of return.
No, I think what Evgeni means is you just dump a bunch of money in the hopes that you get some actual healing later.
You pay a certain premium, and then when you need healing,
and it's way too expensive.
Yeah. No, but
oh my god! Wait, sorry. I just thought the Court of Gods is a health insurance company, right? You go to this. You pay. Everyone pays in, right? Because like the breaths that get given to them are regular. People give those regularly, so everyone's paying into this big pool of people. Then you've got to go and you've got to try and convince someone to give you the thing that you're paying, and they're really stingy about it. So
I like it.
Yeah,
that's great.
No, but like the case with the noble and the whatever, it could be like you don't even have to invest in them. Although that's probably what happens is like you buy a bunch of bodies, and then if one of them returns, you know that this person has only a week to live, and so you have Godslave for 6 days, and then on the last day you're like, well, so you're gonna die. And can you like just sacrifice yourself and like heal me from my ass cancer?
That's what you had to go with there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Do we have anything else that we need to talk about?
I think I'm good. I'm done. I think.
We can talk about the paintings because that's a little weird.
Yeah. We should talk about that. Yeah, we got to talk about that because they like. Lightsong sees the painting, and he sees stuff in the painting. And we also see in Celebrant that there was a painting that
may or may not be the same, actually.
Well, no, yeah, I don't think it's the same, but basically, invested people can see things in the paintings when they're made in this specific way, I think, right? Like it's
like a painter channeling the iridescent tones.
Yeah, because like they have to have like perfect hue. Like those painters have to be of a pretty like reasonable heightening for that to work, I think, right?
It probably makes it easier. I want to say, like, my feeling is that because anyone can commission something. Sorry, guys, I'm hungry.
This is the audio experience you want. You're welcome.
What if I speak like this? Does this help?
No, we can still hear it.
Oddly, it sounded deeper when you did that. That's the funny thing about that. It was like, it was like less high pitched sound. Yeah.
But yeah, so because anyone can commission a piece of art to go into like and be looked at and judged by the returned, I feel like if you're an artist and you are more invested, you have more breaths, you can produce a more, like, obviously you're not investing the piece itself, right?
Yeah, right.
But the better your color perception is, the more, like, maybe like the returned looking at it can kind of connect with it, because you as the creator and the returned as the viewer both need to be above a certain threshold to see what is actually there. And so maybe there's some connection nonsense that's happening.
I think it could just be the more breaths you have, the more like connected you are to the spiritual realm a bit, and like you're like there just like a bit.
Yeah, but the returned don't see visions like whenever they look at things. Like you don't look at your breakfast bowl and see a vision of Halangin burning. They go and look at like pieces of art.
I think it must be something where the painter, through their heightening and whatever, like channeling the tomes. Is it tomes or tones? I never.
Tones, the iridescent tones.
That channeling the iridescent tones, they're able to like maybe not see into the spiritual realm, but get like something from the spiritual realm and kind of like loosely paint it, and then a returned who has the divine breath is able to see that and go, like, I recognize what that is, kind of. I think there has to be something, like, some kind of spiritual...
Oh, yeah, there has to be some spiritual mumbo-jumbo in this, for sure, 100%.
I wonder then, and this might be a question to sometime ask Brandon, I wonder if the reason there are visions is because just invested people can sometimes produce a vision from a piece of art for whatever reason, or if the piece of art has to be created in a specific way to then have a chance to induce a vision in somebody who's
maybe there's some intent shenanigans with the artist, right?
Well, we do know it they have to be, we don't know what it means, but we know they have to be channeling the iridescent tone.
Right, so it definitely iridescent, some intent shenanigans, for sure, 100%, right?
Yeah, but like, all of the artists who are sending pieces to be judged by the gods are presumably intending for something to happen.
Yeah, but like, sometimes the artist just, like, doesn't, like, they have the intent, but maybe that piece just didn't capital C connect with that specific return to... Yeah. That's surprisingly plausible, though, you gotta admit.
Yeah.
You know...
It's a weird one. I'm like, doing a lot of thinking and not getting very far.
Alright, any final thoughts on Returned, I guess? We certainly did blab. We did that. I don't know if you learned anything from this episode, but yeah.
I mean, there were interesting things in, like, the healing thing.
Yeah.
If anything, you're probably more confused than when you started.
That's true. Yeah, I'm more confused. I'm actually more confused. That's true. Yeah, so we've done a few other Warbreaker podcasts, so you can check out our 5 Scholar ones and our Awakened ones. They're pretty good. Cool.
An endowment one back in the olden day. Well,
yeah, like before we had video. Yeah. Yep.
I guess I have a question for you all that we can kind of close up with.
Sure.
Do you think endowment can return people on other worlds?
No.
Because like, obviously she's invested on Nalthis.
Yeah.
But unlike the Stelish magic systems, hers is not bound to the planet.
I think when I was doing research, I remember a couple wobs, not on that specifically, but on people asking, hey, could someone who moved to Nalthis from another planet get returned?
Yeah.
They can't, but their children can, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's probably a connection thing, like connection to the planet type of thing.
That fits nicely in with my theory on why it's a no on returning people from other planets. I think the normal breath, is kind of important. So it almost, you're born with a breath, which means you're born with a normal human amount of soul, and then a little bit extra, which sticks to that bit of soul. And then when you lose your breath, you become a drab, because you've got a little bit of your soul missing that's stuck to the breath.
But drabs can return.
Yes, and so what I was going to say was when you die, there's kind of where there's a blur between breath and soul. Endowment can stick a divine breath into that slot, basically. If that makes sense. If it's not making sense, I can use a different analogy. And so when someone not from Nalthis dies, and they didn't have that breath, they weren't born with a breath, they don't have that slot where the edges of your soul is a bit blurry because you had a breath. So for endowment to stick something in there. But someone who was moved to Nalthis and had kids, those kids would assumingly have breaths because they were born on Nalthis. And therefore they can be returned.
Oh,
that's
Drabs
you're
cannot return, actually.
sorry. Drabs cannot return.
Drabs cannot return.
Ooh.
Well, they get shafted.
Yeah, man.
Well, so I was just looking because I was like, I thought they could, but it's like, no.
What did I?
2011 Alloy of Law release party audio. What could go wrong with a 9-year-old wob? A drab cannot return as the returned are known, and there are things about the drab that are not completely understood. But a drab without breath, it's going to be very hard. Drabs do not return.
Okay, so kind of, I'm going to stick with the same. I'm going to brute force this theory through this new information and say that when you lose your breath, that slot which you normally could put a divine breath in it goes with the breath that you let go of. Like, essentially, there's a part of the human soul on Nalthis which allows you to put breaths into it, and when you don't have breaths, you're a drab and you can't put a divine breath in it. Or when you're not from Nalthis, you don't have that slot to put a divine breath in. Yeah, it's real bad. It's bad.
In essence, you believe that you need to die with a breath to be able to return.
I think that's reasonable.
Yes.
That's reasonable.
Because it does something with your soul which allows endowment to put the divine breath in there.
Yeah. It's your power outlet.
Maybe it's the same breath that she's supercharging with just like a massive more chunk of
just
investor.
I have a bad theory.
Okay,
but
go for it.
The more investiture a person has, the longer they stick in the cognitive realm. So that's a good point. Because so little, they leave too quickly, and she can't grab them.
Honestly, that's pretty solid. Honestly, yeah,
maybe. But I also feel like a shard can like jump in
and keep a person around if they want to.
Like when Kelsier died, and he was looking at all the other people that were being killed around him. Like from the cognitive realm, preservation was able to like have brief conversations
with all of them,
with a lot of them. Yeah,
but drabs are even less invested than your average person because of sync of the soul.
Yes, but like, would it be that much less? Maybe. I guess maybe.
Yeah, because the shards can do a bunch of spiritual shenanigans to make the conversation be kind of as long as they want, really. I imagine.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, so the thing I was wondering is like if a Nalthian goes off world, like can endowment still return them?
Kind of.
There also could just be like it could just be a personality thing where endowment is like, no, I swore I wouldn't meddle in other planets, so like if one of my people leaves, I'm not going to touch him anymore type.
Interestingly, there is a word of Brandon later in 2019 that says, could a non-native be able to be returned? And Brandon says, yes, that is possible. And so someone born without a breath came to Nalthis, could possibly be returned. Brandon's like, possibly be returned, yes, that's not very likely.
Presumably because they would need to like establish connection with Nalthis and stuff like that.
Possibly buy a breath while they're there, or
yeah.
I think it's likely enough that they can acquire a breath.
Yeah, that's why if he says it's not likely, then I'm like, but it's kind of easy to get a breath.
Yeah,
you can buy them, so it's like,
Huh. Neat. Well, cool. There are still some shenanigans, but I think it's important to remember that, like, especially with Warbreaker coming out. Brandon wrote that a long time ago. That it's like...
I can't believe it's been over 10 years now, yeah.
More.
Probably is maybe forgetting some details. As to, like, who could return, who could not return. And that is obviously going to get a little inconsistent, And
it's also not necessarily a thing that he has... like, if his plan for the Cosmere includes somebody not native, like these are probably not things that he has considered a lot.
Yeah, like it. Yeah, I guess that's probably not going to be plot relevant. And then it's whatever the book says it's going to be.
And there's probably enough like spiritual mumbo jumbo involved that you could find if you wanted to.
Look, the power of spiritual mumbo jumbo.
It's very, very powerful.
It's very powerful. It's the power of
shards.
rationalization.
Even shards must bow to it.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Cool. Well, that's it for this one, but now it's time for Who's That Cosmere Character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Tom.
Raise.
Hoid in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? Caw.
Welcome to Who's That Cosmic Character, the game show where you guys send in a character and 5 clues to wtcc at 70shard.com, and then I read out the 5 clues, and these guys try and guess who the character is based upon the clues. And if they get it, then they're great, and if they don't, then they suck. So normally, either me or Grace does it, but since we've both got me and Grace, we're going to do one each because we also don't have Ian, so we actually have a chance of winning.
Hey, I'm the champion of the last Who's That Cosmic Character episode. Fear me. I annihilated Argent. I was like 5 points ahead.
I'm just here to look pretty.
Doing a great job. Cool. Let us jump right into it. So, this is sent in by Lightwing8888.
Cool.
Clue number 1 is, this character was supposed to be a good person.
Adolin.
It is not Adolin.
Ooh, that's good though. That's good.
Yeah, I really felt it.
Yeah, that's really good. I like the Adolin guess. That's really nice. I'm gonna go with Denth.
It is not Denth.
To be a good person. It's a weird clue.
I like these clues. I'm as a heads up, Lightwing 88888. I'm going to rearrange your clues because I think one of them gives it away too early.
Wait, did you say one more 8 than you were supposed to?
I did.
That's staying in. Staying in.
Gotta keep track of the 8s.
I will go with Miles.
Ooh, it is not Miles.
Because he was a lawman.
Yep.
No.
Cool.
This character has a child.
Ooh.
Well, there goes my second guess.
King Dedalin of Idris.
It is King Dedalin of Idris. The legendary King Idris himself.
No. Yeah, because he was a bad person for sending Vivenna away.
He was.
For sending Siri to go die, I guess.
Yes. The next clue was this character doesn't adhere to their beliefs. That's the one I moved because I thought that would give it away a bit too much. Clue number 4 was this character has lived in a palace, and clue number 5 is this character has returned blood. So yeah.
Is
Nice.
that like the opposite of when you go and give blood?
It's when you give it and they say no, we don't want it, and they give it back. Returned blood.
All
Oh
right.
man, I need to
Limber up.
yeah.
What if I get this next one, clue 1? Would you be upset, Ben?
No, I would shake your hand at a
No.
good competition.
No. Well, we're in a pandemic. We can't shake hands.
Wow.
And on opposite sides of the world.
Yeah, that too. But mostly the pandemic.
Yeah, mostly the pandemic thing.
Yeah.
Doing the whole social isolation thing with
Yeah.
multiple thousands of miles in between.
All right. So this one that was sent in by Kalani. Clue number 1. This character has children.
King Dedalin of Idris.
Not King Dedalin.
Vivenna's mother, who's unnamed.
Shockingly.
Look, I had to.
So do I wanna
Gavilar.
It is not Gavilar.
Okay. I was gonna say, do I want to keep the royalty theme going on or the Nalthis theme going on? And Ben has made that decision for me.
Uh-huh.
So I will guess
Rosharn's.
King Iadon.
It's not King Iadon. Clue 2. This character was in a romantic relationship.
Jezrien.
It is not Jezrien.
Presumably, if they have kids.
Navani.
It is not Navani.
So what is the theme here? Rosharans.
I mean, there's a lot of people with kids in Roshar.
Okay, that cancels out quite a few people. Okay.
It kind of does, honestly.
Yeah, I'm going through all the main characters because
I don't know. Like Hesina?
It is not Hesina. Clue 3. This character dies in battle.
Straff Venture.
It is not Straff Venture.
Okay, I've got some thought. I've got a thought. I want to say Evie, but I don't know if the burning of the rift counts as in battle.
I would say that's in battle. Yeah, it was in the battle.
It is in a battle, but she wasn't in the battle, so she didn't die in battle.
Look,
she died
I'm sorry.
in a battle.
Like, oh, okay, all right, okay, all right,
yeah, I don't know if
fair,
that distinction is
all right,
big enough.
fine, yeah, sure.
I'm not going to say Evie.
Yeah, I would say that wouldn't count.
Okay, yeah, because died in battle typically means died in combat, like in the fight, and not just like collateral damage.
What's their face? The one with the thing.
The one with the thing.
Oh my god. I'm buzzing in. None of you can answer until I give my guess.
I'm stuck on Roshar. I'm trying to think of anyone else other than Rosharans, and I can't.
Tindwyl.
It is Tindwyl.
Oh, no way! Oh
nice.
man,
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah, I like it because like she has children and she's in a romantic relationship.
Yeah,
but like
yeah, that's true. That is true.
Unconnected.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I was gonna say Tanalan Senior next.
That's what I was going to with next, but then that's why I was saying that. I'm like, I'm stuck on Roshar.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm stuck in the rift.
How many
Like,
people did Dalinar kill? A whole lot.
Clue 4 was this character is from Scadrial. Clue 5 is this character wears lots of jewelry.
Nice.
Nice. I like that.
That was a really good one. I like that.
That was really good.
This is also the second time we've had Tindwyl, and one of the clues has been about the character having children.
It's a good clue. Because you automatically go to Roshar. You always go to Roshar.
I mean, that's if the clue allows it, you tend to do that.
Statistically speaking, probably so.
It's yeah. Cool.
Awesome. All right, well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Our next episode will hopefully be Dawnshard, if that comes out in time, but like, I think 2 weeks from now it'll be November 6th or so I hope it does. I don't know what we're gonna do next.
2 weeks. That's my birthday.
Well, yeah, but we're not gonna record it then.
Oh yeah.
You're just like you
Ben's
just had to
birthday
smile
live
like a little
stream.
baby.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. That's my birthday, guys. Just keep that in mind.
Wow, now I can't cut it.
No, you can't.
Well, fine. So, I mean, we're on the eve of Rhythm of War, and we will be going back to weekly podcasts with Rhythm of War, because I imagine there will be a lot to talk about. So, yeah.
At least 2 things.
At least 2, yeah. That seems plausible. So, you can find us on 17char.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you'd want, especially with the Rhythm of War preview chapters. Lots of discussion happening. Come in Discord. You can support us on Patreon. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud. You can leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Make sure you return in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, you
And
will,
then-
because we'll be talking about Dawnshard, so you better.
But don't die the week after that.
He's trying to get one more returned pun in before.
Yeah, no, I know
we-
that. I know that. Caw!